Hello, everyone. So here I am once again, sharing a few of the records that I've been enjoying this week. And today I'll start with this one, Dream Sequence by Cosmic Eye on the Regal Zonophone label. This was released in '72, and it is kind of a one-off project led by Amancio da Silva, the Indian guitarist based in Britain. And this is a kind of a very soulful piece that mixes psychedelic rock, jazz, Indian music by way of the Indian instrumentation, like the occasional sitar, but mostly through the tabla playing that drives so much of this. And also, of course, by Amancio's playing itself that relies a lot on the intervallic coloring of Indian music. And I really like how the themes, they are interwoven on this one. They're like how they seem to spring from one another, just like in a dream. And I guess this is one of my favorites, if not my favorite, Amancio da Silva related record. So yeah, pretty cool. So I guess an original of this can be notoriously kind of tricky to get, but it has been reissued a few times, so shouldn't be a problem. Good music. Next, I've been meaning to talk about this one for a while now. This is The Widmaker in 18th Century Williamsburg by To Live and Shave in LA, which was originally released only on CD by Menlo Park in 2002. And last year, it was finally released on vinyl by Bill Orcutt's label, TLASILA Records, on this beautiful box set. This is a 4 LP reissue. Also comes with this book with this design that's very reminiscent of the Nurse with Wound list, hence my t-shirt for the day. And this is a pretty cool list. Tom Smith's list is pretty cool. It starts with Edgar Allan Poe, Baudelaire, James Joyce, Ezra Pound, Marcel Duchamp, Man Ray, Henry Miller, and goes on. And this book, in a way, it tells the history of the making of the Widmaker since its inception and the 5-year process to get it finished. And it does so in an interesting way. It's actually described as an oral history of the making of the album, with alternating interview excerpts with the band members at the time, Tom Smith, Red Bastard, and Ben Wolcott, and many friends, but not necessarily all friends, collaborators and acquaintances that witnessed this long and sort of tumultuous and very obsessive creative process. And there are interviews with people like Aaron Dillaway, Azita Yousefi, Jim O'Rourke, Weasel Walter. So this is both kind of an homage to the album, to its legacy, but also a homage to Tom Smith, who passed away in 2022. And I guess it couldn't be any other way. It really gravitates around him, and he seemed quite the character. So it's like all these like different voices compose a miniature portrait of his effective drive and of his creative ethos. And it's a complex portrait, you know. It's not at all only flattering stuff that is told here for sure. And when it comes to the music, this is a huge body of work. You know, it's kind of Baroque in its conception, or as Tom Smith himself described, hillbilly musique concrète neo-baroque. So at the same time, it's like a colossal, brutal, massive sound, but also kind of very fragile at the same time. It's not a huge monolithic unitary body, but more like a mass of sound that is composed of very minute sonic entities that are maniacally put together. And when they are interacting, clashing, then they sound huge. So a lot of what I find very compelling in this seems to be a development of this basic principle to construct the sound, this constant balancing act between diametrically opposed elements and aesthetic qualities and so on. And what Tom Smith does here with the sort of multi-layering of his voice and the quality, the overall tone of his vocal delivery, the way he sings, which is very declamatory. At times it sounds like a very intense poetry reading. It creates, in my opinion, something very, very peculiar, And just as the dense sound collage that makes the Widmaker is made of many disparate sonic elements that when combined make this brutal sound, the multi-layering of his voice also seems to play with this approach, but going in a complete opposite direction. It's like his voice seems to be one thing, but then it starts to disintegrate or multiply. It's like a voice to the splitting of the self. And when I say that this work plays a lot with the possibilities of dialectical clash between opposites, and actually thrives in the zone, in this space of ambiguity that can create a type of composition where the presence of opposite qualities, both in the moment of creation and later in the reception of, or interpretation, if you will, of the work, is developed under the sign of like coexistence and not of mutual exclusion. For instance, it is possible to say of this work at the same time, without contradiction, as Emil Hagstrom does, that Tom's vocal work is an organic sound that makes this much more listenable. And also, as Matmos Drew Daniel writes, his voice reaches an inhumane texture. So I'll read this excerpt from Daniel's text, which I find pretty cool. He writes, Smith sounds far too concerned with florid singing to be satisfied by mere noise, and yet his own urge to abuse that very singing renders these performances of sincere and soulful solicitation so endlessly pranked, fretted, waylaid, and overloaded that the voice becomes, paradoxically, itself more inhuman texture than deliberate plea. So both things are true at the same time. Yeah. So this thing brought to mind another record that seems to also rely on an approach to like vocal layering that sometimes sounds like a literal multiplication or a splitting of the self, which is this one, another Arthur Doyle on the Italian Cubicle label. It's No More Crazy Women. This was released in 2005 with this really cool Cindy Sherman photograph. the cover. So this features Arthur Doyle on voice, flute, and tenor saxophone, Dave Cross on sampler, Rashid Sinam on drums, and Wilbur Morris on bass. And it's actually 2 tracks. 5 tracks, but recorded in 2 different occasions. Tracks. So you have a couple of tracks that were recorded in 1989, and another couple of tracks that were recorded in 2004. So yeah, really intense, really trippy, free music. Love this one. Next, I picked this one, Free Jazz Crème de la Crème, the second of the 2 Blue Note sessions of Cecil Taylor in the 60s. Conquistador, with this killer lineup. It features Andrew Cyril on drums, Bill Dixon on trumpet, Jimmy Lyons on saxophone. I also picked this other Jimmy Lyons record to spin it later. And bass duties performed by Alan Silva and Henry Grimes. So this, needs no introduction. Great record. Next one is also a classic, but of musique concrète. So on the Perspective Musicale series, this is Christian Closier et Jacques Lejeune. Names that were a part of a group of artists and researchers that were interested in a form of sort of cross-pollination between what was the avant-garde in electronic music at the time, on the one hand, and other forms of musical expression, especially improvised music. So they explored the dimension of the performance of improvisation within the context of electroacoustic, or as it is described here, spontaneous electroacoustic language. Their names were associated with 2 groups. First, the Groupe d'Expression Directe de Château Vallon, and later the Opus N group. So next, Baú 83-87 by Mercenários. Mercenários, it's a punk band from São Paulo, and this is a compilation of unreleased and live material from 83 to 87. It was released by the Nada Nada label and came like just the record, but also in a special box set edition. Just this one comes with a t-shirt with flyers, posters, and this tape, also of demo material. I really do prefer these demo and unreleased tracks to the sort of proper studio albums that they released. So I think it sounds more powerful, more aggressive. next one is this self-titled Lobato record. This is a double LP. It was released in 2015 by the Discos ao Léo label. Discos ao Léo is a label that is run by a dear friend of mine who also owns a record store here in Belém that goes by the same name. So Pio Lobato is a researcher and guitarist who is also from Belém, and was a key figure in the revival of the guitarrada in the early 2000s. So guitarrada is a guitar-based genre that emerged in the 70s here in Pará. It's characterized by a mix of like Amazonian rhythms, like carimbó, for instance, but also Caribbean music, and choro, and kind of influenced also by 60s Brazilian rock, especially the Jovem Guarda movement. So it's very danceable, very melodic music. So Pio was very important, not only in sort of a local revival of the genre, but also in projecting it into a sort of a broader recognition in a sort of a national level. And he did that not only as a researcher, that is, as an academic, and as someone with expertise to work behind the scenes as a producer, but he did that primarily as a musician, as a player of guitarrada himself. And so this record is very representative of his sort of updated contemporary take on guitarrada. Yeah. Last but not least, self-titled and self-released 1978 Lully e Lucinha LP on the Nós Lá em Casa label. This was reissued in 2023 on the TLASILA label, and I've never listened to the reissue, but I've read some people commenting that it sounds kind of bad, but I don't know. This is not a super expensive record to get an original of. At least it wasn't when I got this some like 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't know if the tides changed to this one. Kind of folksy, pastoral kind of music. There's a term in Portuguese that is used to describe this kind of 60s inspired, hippie adjacent countercultural aesthetics, which is bicho grilo, and this is a fine, beautiful example of this kind of aesthetic. So that's all. See you next time.